Alright everyone, we start off today talking about the cluelessness of Joe Biden at the G7 summit. It was worse than I expected, and I expected it to be mediocre anyway. Like, mostly I expected him, oddly enough, to be sort of in the background and not really doing it. And that sort of happened because it's clear that Boris Johnson is not particularly friendly with Biden, and because, you know, it's happening there in England, jolly old England, sort of did try to shove him aside, but Biden kept trying to interject and do the big man thing that he's so used to doing throughout his life, and he went completely off script multiple times doing this, and he flopped every single time. It is hilarious to see the damage control right now of Democrats, because they're like, well, it's nice to finally have a mature adult representing the United States. Well, no, he's more than mature, he's elderly, to the point where he has dementia. Hence, 3 links in the description, 3 separate times that he failed, and this is on top of other things that I'll mention now. First and foremost, if you're watching this video on YouTube, there will down below be a pinned comment with links to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind, I make 4, sometimes 5 videos a day. Only 2 of them actually end up on YouTube. That's because if you make more than that, the algorithms punish you, and no matter what you make, the algorithms punish you some anyway. I have seen that firsthand, as well as many of you. Now, again, links in the description. These are different posts to what what Biden got wrong. First, though, something that I'm not going to post there. It's not really a gaffe so much. It's not really a mistake so much as it is an optics fail, which is, you remember at the very outset when they're all on that little stage together, all of the people for the G7 summit, and at first when they were meeting each other, they were doing that the COVID greeting thing. So instead of shaking hands like is normal, they were bumping elbows and stuff. But then as soon as the photo op was over, when they were walking away, they were putting their arms around each other, hugging and stuff. None of these people masked up, which is, oh my god, we're all gonna die mode. This is a super spreader event. Look, world leaders are gonna be dropping like flies. Okay, maybe that's not a bad thing. But anyway, they're violating ostensibly their own rules. I realize all these people are vaccinated, but it doesn't matter. According to Joe Biden, you're still at grave risk regardless, and you have to wear a hazmat suit. But look at these links and see the gaps. First, he manages to forget, apparently, that Boris Johnson had already announced the delegate from South Africa who was there. And Biden was like, oh, you know, you got to introduce him. And Boris Johnson was like, he silenced Biden. The interaction between those two is very telling. Look at their body language in that first clip there, again, between Boris Johnson and Joe Biden. Biden tries to interject to do the funny and big man thing. He's almost echoing LBJ. LBJ used to do things like this. Basically, I'm the president. I'm going to act a little bit awkward, and you're going to eat it up because you're lesser than me. He used to literally whip his cock out and show it to staffers and tell them it was why he was in charge. Biden may not go to that length, unless it's in private with someone who's of dubiously legal age, presumably, but he does the same basic shtick. Trump would occasionally do this, by the way, with his body language. He would nudge in on people, and generally speaking, there was no attempt by them to match him. They didn't want to deal with it. They felt awkward, and most people just don't perform well in those situations. Most people don't have that mentality. So they're not as confrontational openly. But Biden can't make it work. Number one, because Boris Johnson doesn't take him seriously, and look at that clip, and you can fucking tell that he doesn't. Apparently he gave him, Biden, this is another slap in the face by the British, by the way, and you know, I'm not a huge fan of Boris Johnson. He's got his own quirks, but this was masterful. Biden apparently decided to give him a gift, which was like this really high-end racing bike and shit with U.S. colors on it or something. And guess what Johnson apparently gave Biden? I don't know if this anecdote is actually confirmed, but I think it is. It was a framed photo of Frederick Douglass, and it was supposedly printed out from Wikipedia. So basically, I came to the party and I got a gift I forgot to get a gift for someone, so I got it at the gas station on the way there. But the Frederick Douglass thing, in the context of Biden with his past, again, nothing happens by coincidence in diplomacy. It is all very carefully thought out beforehand. Boris Johnson knew what he was doing. Biden knew what he was doing here when he tried to interject, tried to upstage Boris Johnson, and failed completely. Anyway, people ended up just joking about him having dementia, not remembering that the dude from South Africa was already introduced. Second one, this is funny too. He was asked with regards to U.S. diplomacy, because of course the straw man is that Trump was bad at diplomacy. The mythology is that Trump alienated our allies in Europe. So when Biden shows up, he's asked by reporters, well, here's your first visit and stuff. What do you have to say about the fact that there's still, clashing problems supposedly going on? And he's like, 120 days, man. Come on, man. Like, the idea is, well, I've only been here for a little while. It takes a while to undo all the damage that Trump did. Actually being America first has somehow damaged America. But the problem is this. When he does this with reporters, I don't think he understands the optics. And don't talk about the Democrats, the liberals and stuff. They're on board with Biden. It's mostly soft support, but they tend to support him because he's got a D after his name. And because he's not Orange Man. Think about how this looks to independent voters who are looking at this through a less biased lens. This looks like you're getting a question. It's not a hardball. It's an honest question. They're not trying to be antagonistic. They're not asking it in an antagonistic manner. And you're leaning forward. The body language, again, is very telling. Leaning forward, scowling a little bit, and acting incredulous. You can't even answer a basic question with regards to what you're literally at the summit for, which is U.S. foreign diplomacy. Well, it just doesn't look good. It's sort of like when Kamala does her psycho laugh. I think Biden gets off with a little bit less problems from such things, as he just seems old and befuddled. But then it takes us to clip number 3 here, where he repeatedly mistook Syria and Libya for one another, got them mixed up, appeared not to know what the hell he was talking about. And you'll notice, most of the time when he makes gaffes, when he's making a speech, normally he's looking down at notes or looking out at a teleprompter, but when he leans forward, especially when he puts one arm down, you may have noticed this. This is, again, senatorial body language, I suppose. He's a body language and linguistics 101 video for today for the clankers. He goes off script, usually only for like a few sentences or a paragraph, but he almost always fumbles. Almost every time. He starts telling some story, and he gets lost in his thoughts. It only takes him 10-15 seconds for that to happen. So unless it's a very, very short quip, and then he usually butchers it anyway, Bush style, it becomes a big problem. Biden's visit here at the G7 summit has been an unmitigated disaster. Again, worse than I expected. I expected it to be, well, he shows up, he mumbles about climate change for a while, they mumble about climate change for a while, but the idea is that most other world leaders, they're not like massively well-spoken. Like Boris Johnson isn't known for his great soaring speeches. He's not Winston Churchill or something. But he completely upstages Biden. The only other real true loser is Trudeau. Trudeau melted into the background. You'll see, because he's the weakest of the G7 representatives that's there, he was like basically a non-entity. And he looked all scruffy and shit like that, and it was really, really funny. I'm thinking about the situation where Angela Merkel looks like the adult on stage. The writing's on the wall, I guess, for the Western world at some point. But Joe Biden really was... His performance was a D- at best. It'd be like a Mercy D or something like that. When you're continuously making these kind of mistakes, both in optics and in literally telling people what the hell you're trying to tell them, it becomes problematic. If it's like one mistake, okay, that happens. But when it's like 4 or 5 times every single time you speak, it begins to mount. And the problem is, again, and this is something liberals and Dem partisans won't notice this. Republicans will notice it and be hyperbolic about it, but you can tell. These people, when they look at Biden, they don't take him seriously. They don't dislike him the way they did Trump, because Trump was breaking their toys, their globalistic toys, but they don't respect him. And they don't think he's all there. They expect Kamala Harris fundamentally to be president. I think they're goddamn terrified of that. Kamala Harris won't even fucking visit the border. It's been almost 3 months since she was appointed border czar, and she hasn't even seen the border. Just for optical purposes, as I explained the other day, because it's a no-win. If you show up, the situation's terrible, you're in charge. Yeah, well, try explaining that to all the reporters there without doing your hee-hee psycho laugh and ignoring questions. It's better just to not show up to it's better for Kamala to appear to not be doing her job than to actually do her job for optics purposes right now. With Joe Biden, he keeps doing this crazy shit, like, just keep him at home. Someone else should have gone to G7. Kamala arguably should have gone to G7. He should have said, well, yeah, I've got the coof. I feel funny. I had another aneurysm. It'd probably be better optics than this. This is crazy. To have a person who, suppose the asterisk administration, the president in name, be completely out to lunch. It's like shades of George W., only if George W. were actually demented and weren't just pretending. It should terrify a lot more people, but a lot of people, they've got cognitive dissonance. They think Orange Man bad. They were told for 4 years he was a fascist, so they breathe a sigh of relief that the dude's just demented. Just Alzheimer's ridden and a warmonger. That's crazy. That's about all. Peace out.